wherever
What?
they go.
Reality's here.
But of course,
He's trying to
that's
crash the
a
party.
lot of effort,
Reality?
a lot of resources.
Who let him in? You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda. Like, I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
That was totally wicked!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News on this morning time. It is July 3rd. I believe that is correct. It's a Friday at 10:03 in the morning on Eastern time. Because believe it or not, Mr. Henry's back on Eastern time for the time being. I'm sitting over here in an undisclosed location, the brick and mortar. You will never know where I am. But I don't have the green screen behind me this morning. That's why I'm looking all webby and wavy. My ears are going to distort in and out. Y'all are just going to have to deal with it. The face will stay in focus. That's all you need to see. Like I said before, my name is Mr. Henry. David Shine Thompson sitting over there beside me. We have a jam-packed show today for you. First, about 5-10 minutes, just going to give y'all major updates on petitions we're working with, things that are happening today, things that are happening over the weekend. Let me just dive into all of this right now. First and foremost, before we even get to the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment and any of this stuff, letters to the legislators section. You'll see that tagged in the show notes at the top of the show there. Evernote link will bring you to the first thing here. Earn It Act. The Earn It Act. Let me read you directly what will be going to your legislator if you sign this petition, which we are pleading that you do. Dear officials, it says, I'm writing to you today in opposition of the so-called Earn It Act. This bill is a direct threat to data security of everyday Americans like me. That will be like you if you sign it. Encryption is crucial to protecting our most intimate data, ensuring things like online banking and infrastructure support devices are safe and secure. Providing a backdoor to law enforcement would be a threat. Providing a backdoor to law enforcement would threaten all of that protection. Please oppose this bill. Don't threaten encryption. I asked for that one more time today because The Verge also linked to the show notes. The Verge has an article that just came out entitled "A Weakened Version of the Earn It Act Advances Out of Committee." And I don't want to go too much in this right now because we've got some other stuff we need to pitch. We'll come back to this shortly, possibly. But that's basically it. A weakened version of the Earn It Act called something entirely different. Just advanced out of committee. And this is coming from Bill Easley. He's the senior tech policy analyst for Americans for Prosperity here. Said this bill could irrevocably harm the very free speech protections that enable the internet to be the most powerful communications tool in history and to serve as a primary means of commerce for countless American small businesses. So one more time, let me pitch this. Show notes, click that pledge, sign it, letter to the legislators, goes directly to y'all's legislators, Senate, House side as well, lets them know, hey, man, don't support this bill. We need our protections where they are. David Shine Thompson, buddy, how you doing this morning, man? And if I could put you on the spot a little bit, you were just telling me, too, about the Veteran Next Door episode today that's going to be so fantastic. Let them know a little bit about that as well.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Sorry, I was posting our show on Parler.
Sorry, buddy.
So, happy 4th of July weekend, everybody. Theoretically, most of you, at least some of you anyway, are maybe off today because this is when it's observed in the business world when you do business. This is when 4th of July is observed. So, I'm celebrating early. I got my cup of coffee, got my Don't Tread on Me cup ready to go. But happy 4th of July weekend, everybody. And yes, please stay tuned after the show. It'll be 30 to 40 minutes after the show at noon Eastern. The Veteran Next Door radio show will be playing the Independence Day episode. And it's a very, very awesome episode. We interview Thomas Jefferson. It's a friend of ours, actually. But everything he says in the show is actually quotes from Thomas Jefferson. It's really cool. And we talk about the Declaration of Independence, go through it line by line, adding some more context with colloquial anecdotes and history and things like that to give you kind of a fuller picture, a more full picture of what the context around the Declaration of Independence was. Why were they declaring independence? Was it because they wanted haircuts? No. No, it wasn't. It was for way more serious reasons than that. And if you want to not just know those reasons, but have a deeper connection to them, join us at noon today on Real News for the Veteran Next Door radio show. We'll be going over the Declaration of Independence. I actually just posted the Declaration of Independence in its entirety on the Real News show. So if it's been years, if it's been since high school or even 4 or 5 years ago since you've read the Declaration of Independence, I encourage you sometime over this weekend, preferably tomorrow, to read it yourself or even read it out loud with your family. Important time to do so.
I appreciate you updating on that, Shai. I just thought it was such a cool concept, man, to interview Thomas Jefferson, or i.e. a radio personality that's just playing the character through reading only Thomas Jefferson quotes that you're interviewing him about the Declaration of Independence. Concept that I wouldn't have been able to come up with anyways. Hey, greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment right now. Let us know how you're doing, what you need help with, what you need prayer concerns for, anything you want to bring attention to, businesses you want to bring attention to, something you need help with or something you're struggling with. Are you just like upset about something in general? I don't know. And let me say this for the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment as well. It is Friday, so let's do Open Lines Friday. I'm just going to make this at this point pretty much any time in the show if you want to. I don't really care. I mean, we have some stories to get through, but at the same time, man, come on. It's July 3rd. You want to talk about some Independence Day stuff? You want to talk about whatever else? You want to talk about Epstein's mistress getting arrested, which we will in a minute. Any of these topics we're going to bring up today, give us a call at this number, 615-807-0619, 615-807-0619. Voice your opinion directly to us. Be a part of this community. Help us build it. Let me dive into the first local story, which seems like another pitch for a thing, and it is kind of. But the first local story you'll see in the Evernote link here today is the Independence Day isn't canceled. The meetup link there. The meetup link goes directly to the Independence Day isn't canceled. You can sign up, let these people know you're coming, give your RSVP. That will be happening tomorrow, starting at 5 p.m. Let's see here. I'm not exactly sure the address in this stuff. Sean, you can fill that in here a second if I'm missing something. But yeah, look, you're going to have team competitions, winning ribbons, going to be games that you can play, life-size Jenga, cornhole, horseshoes, 50-50 raffle drawing. Congressman Tim Burch is going to be there. County Mayor Glenn Jacobs is going to be there. Go out there, if for nothing else, just to thank Glenn Jacobs for being the sole no vote on the whole mask thing in Knox County. I mean, if you're going to do anything else, why not, man? Just want to give the quick time to pitch that real quick. Will be happening tomorrow at 5 p.m. Sean, do you have a location for that? Can we say a location? I don't know how that works.
Well, if it's on their website, then we can say it on our show. So it's at 11.
Yeah, there it is.
11267 Yarnell Road in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's 11267 at Yarnell Road in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it's from 5 to 10 p.m. But if you want to sign up for that, you can either on Facebook or on meetup.com search this phrase right here, Independence Day isn't canceled. Maybe even add Knoxville to the end of it if you have trouble finding that. But I think if you just go to Meetup and search this here, you can RSVP. You can get the map here. Also, Grant didn't mention this, but DJ Ross.
Oh, yeah.
Former producer of Real News will be providing music and sound and all that stuff. And there's going to be reenactors there roaming the grounds. Maybe even fife and drum.
This next story I'm going to jump into right now. One more time, here's the call-in number. I'm sure there's going to be people with passionate opinions about this next story. 615-807-0619. That's 615-807-0619. Here's the story update as of Wednesday. Just didn't have time to get to it yesterday. Here's the headline from the Tennessean. As states shed Confederate symbols, Tennessee resisted. Governor Lee may have just changed all that. I don't think anybody needs an update as to the Nathan Bedford Forrest situation that's going on in Tennessee. It's been one that's been going on for quite some time. I think even well before Shine or I, well, at least my interest into radio. Here's the story. As Confederate symbols and statues have come down around the South at an unprecedented rate in past month, Tennessee's own controversial bust of Nathan Bedford Forrest has remained firmly situated, roped off from the reach of the public inside the state capitol. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but I get what they're saying. But the will of Governor Lee, whose position on the bus has evolved significantly in a year and a half from initially opposing removal to now appearing to maneuver behind the scenes to facilitate it, may prevail. Again, Tennessee, I'd say that's a slight exaggeration, but who am I, man? It's your publication. Say what you will. Lee on Wednesday called for a meeting next week at the State Capitol Commission. The 12-member group with authority to determine, with buy-in from the Tennessee Historical Commission, whether the bust can go. So this is kicking it off to the State Capitol Commission, which I'm pretty sure was going to be the process eventually anyway. The commission is set to meet in person at 9 a.m. on July 9th. Though members who need to attend electronically will be permitted to do so, according to Lee's office. Now, this is a quote coming from Lee himself. He says, "It's my expectation that they will vote on whether to move the Nathan Bedford Forrest bust. I'll make a special proposal for what they'll vote on next week." That's July 9th. July 9th next week, they're going to be voting on whether to move this Nathan Bedford Forrest bust. Now, Lee declined to offer specifics about his proposal on Wednesday. Most proponents for taking down the bust have suggested that it be relocated to the Tennessee State Museum, where there is currently a display on Forrest. Now, this is the very interesting part for me, and part of the reason why I brought all this up right now. The governor's call for a meeting of the commission to vote on removal is a rapid development in a fight that has lingered for decades. Since the bust was first installed outside the house, here's the whole, well, not the whole point, but one of the main points I wanted to bring this up this morning. Since the bust was first installed outside the House and Senate chambers in 1979. Now, I got inquisitive enough to wonder, like, all right, dude, so who was in control in Tennessee in 1979? If you're following along with the show notes, you can see right there in front of you. Ray Blanton, Democrat governor. Here's the breakdown of the Senate. 23 Democrat members of the Senate, 9 Republican members in the Senate, apparently 1 independent all the way back in 1979. Probably should have looked up who that person was. Here's the House breakdown in 1978. I think I said 79 before. Sorry, 1978. Here's the House breakdown. 66 Democrats, 32 Republicans, 1 independent. Now here I'll finish this last quote and then I'll ask the question. Maybe someone will call in or help me out with the comment section. And Sean, I'm a little bit off my game this morning because I don't have my normal setup. So if there's comments in Facebook here, I'm using my phone to grab some of the comments. Let me know if I need to catch some here, if there's good ones. But here's the final quote. Lee said, "This process is the opposite of the mob rule that unfortunately has been dominating the national headlines around these historical displays." Lee said, apparently referencing protesters who have torn down statues in recent weeks. He went on to say, "I have confidence that our process here in Tennessee with the Capitol Commission will be fair and representative of Tennesseans." I go back to real quick. Somebody that's a little bit more in tune with Tennessee politics for a longer period of time than I have been able to be. Help me out if those stats that I broke down a second ago does anything for you. And this is what I mean. It just seems odd to me that Republicans are so fervently defending, some anyways, the Nathan Bedford Forrest statue. They're not the ones that put it up there. And maybe this is what I'm missing here. Is maybe there in 1978 there wouldn't be. And this is a question. This is not even rhetorical. I'm genuinely asking. This isn't even me making a statement. I'm wondering if there's not that much of a difference possible between modern day Republicans and Democrats from 1978 as it pertains to the Tennessee legislature, or at least to Tennessee politics. Because I don't quite understand where necessarily some of the Republican sense of defending this situation comes from. If it's like Democrats put that up, dude, we didn't have anything to say with that. Look at how much of the minority we were back then. Are you kidding me? Like Tennessee didn't become a red state in the state level until what, like 2006, 2008?
Yeah, early 2000s.
Right? Something like that? I don't know, man. It just seems odd to me here. And I know it sounds like I'm making...
That something that people might remember is remember that Governor Haslam was the first Republican governor in a long, long time. A long, long time. And I think even that was the year when he became governor. That was the first time the legislature went fully Republican. But I mean, that was like after I was in high school. You know what I'm saying? Or after I was out of high school. So like it wasn't that long ago is what I'm saying.
Well, and that's why I'm bringing it up, man.
I think the Democratic legislature and governor, they had the legislature, a majority in the legislature and the governorship for almost 30 years, like a little under 30 years since that bust was put in place. And as far as I know, that's the most recent bust to be put in place at the Capitol. All the others are much older.
Let me read some of these comments then, man, because that's the question I'm asking. And again, I know it sounds like I'm trying to make a point here, and I possibly am, but I'm honestly just being inquisitive here because I frankly just don't know if that makes a difference for anybody. That being that it wasn't Republicans that put this up here, so it seems strange to me now that it's Republicans that are fighting to defend it so much. And I will say, I don't think necessarily anybody that's openly defending this is doing it in the sense of what I'm talking about. I think they're just looking at it from a 30,000 foot view and saying, like, Tennessee, this is a vacuum situation for us. And we've gotten wrapped up in the national agenda of taking down all these statues and stuff. And we don't want to play a part of that game because it's a distinctly different thing for us. So maybe if we could take away the 30,000 foot element for a second and pull it back down and see that it was Democrats that put it up there in 78, maybe Republicans would be less inclined to defend it. Here's some of the comments here. Jonathan said a second ago on Facebook, there is a ton of difference. I think he's talking about there's a ton of difference between 78 Democrats and 2020 Republicans, saying they are defending the process. They are defending the law. All right, that's a valid point. That's an extremely valid point. I totally get that. I have no problem with that. He says they're defending the process. They're defending the law. Very, very valid. Kelly said in Facebook, I'm guessing Lamar Alexander was governor at the time. I think Alexander was governor right after. Don't quote me on this, but I'm fairly certain Alexander was governor right after Blanton. Man, there's a fingers crossed. Someone check me on that. Jonathan went on to say, watch the last 2 days of the General Assembly. You'll understand it pretty quickly. Man, Jonathan's on point with some of these comments, man. So apparently watch the last 2 days of General Assembly and you'll understand what he's talking about. The process was created. He says the process was created in his youth. It's the law. It's the process. Kelly said DJ Roz with her emoji game so strong. Heart, smiley face, fire emoji. Anyways, go ahead though, Shine.
I can just tell you what I've heard around. I think there's a strong desire for, if there's anything done, for it to be done by the legal process and not be done through intimidation, coercion, or even seen as a political response, as opposed to a Tennessee response. Does that make sense? Like, I think there's somewhat of a don't tell us what to do kind of thing. And that's not the legislature. That's the state of Tennessee. Like, we're not going to be moved by what's going on in Columbus, Ohio. We're going to do it because Tennesseans want to do it, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a little bit of that. And I think also there's a little bit of what's nextism going on. A little bit of what's nextism. Like, well, if we move Nathan Bedford Forrest, what are you going to make us? Are you going to make us get rid of Andrew Jackson? Because he founded the city where the Capitol is. And there's a lot of evidence that he founded the state, basically through his actions of as a general in Revolutionary War and in the War of 1812. Well, not the War of 1812, but the land grants that were given after the Revolutionary War, because there were people from this area of the country, it wasn't called Tennessee yet, that were a part of the surrender of General Cornwallis, which, if you know your history, that was the end of the Revolutionary War. There were Tennesseans, even though they weren't Tennesseans yet, they were like state of Franklintiers or Jamestownians or something like that, but they were all given land grants, and the highest ranking person to get those land grants was Andrew Jackson, and he went to Nashville and said, I want this area, and then dispersed it amongst his men. That ended up in 1796, 1792, around there, that ended up forming the state. So and that's a reasonable question. I'm not saying I know the answer, and I'm not making a point either. Yeah, but these are considerations that I've heard around. I don't necessarily like the fact. In fact, when we were at the Capitol, I was standing right there with you, and I said, "Why is this here?"
Yeah, right. No,
I was right there, and I said, and if you look at who else is there, like Davy Crockett's there. You know, I'm pretty sure Howard Baker is another one, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But like Davy Crockett's there. And it's like, why is like Nathan Bedford Forrest like right next to Davy Crockett? I don't know. Weird stuff to me, but I like the idea that it's going through a legal process, and I'm sympathetic to the what's nextism argument, generally speaking, even beyond Andrew Jackson, because then like you start just dropping stuff away, and like Columbus, Ohio is talking about renaming their city right now, and you just wonder where it stops, and what the people who are upset, what do they really want? Right. So you're asking why would someone want to protect it, but I think there's a reasonable question of what do the people who want it taken down ultimately really want? Is that the only thing they want taken down? Would they be okay with it being in a museum? Would they say that even it being in a museum is bad? These are all things that probably shouldn't be made in snap decisions. It should be things that you have to work out over time and maybe even separate from emotion to try to figure out what is best and what is legal. But that's,
yeah, man.
I've gone on too long about that.
No, you haven't at all, man, because I think it hits it on the head, right? I think the entire thing is specifically, and I've said this all along too, I have no problem at all with these statues come down as long as it's done by the same means of putting it up there. Or at least similar enough means. The point being is exactly the point that Jonathan's making in Facebook as well. He said, Lee put it succinctly, mob rule. As long as it's not because of the mob rule, as long as you're not responding specifically to the mob rule, if it was a Democratic-led process that put something up there, use a Democratic-led process to remove it as well. That's the entire point, man. Convince your fellow man that it's wrong and then take it down. It's the anti-cancel culture nonsense. And Kelly said in Facebook, you got a second ago, coercion is not consent. Coercion is not consent. Absolutely 100%. 100%, which is a very strange thing that sort of the mob mentality that's being forced right now by way of some of these leftist ideology is also the mob mentality that talks so much about consent. There's a little bit of irony going on there. There's a lot of hypocrisy going on there. I was actually talking to some folks yesterday. I said, lead ourselves into the national stories here, possibly lightening it up a little bit with this meme/photo review.
Let me get a couple of YouTube comments real quick, Grant, before we change topic real quick. Zach from YouTube says, I think there's a secret cabal of statue worshipers funding and protecting statues. They get their knowledge from touching and speaking with taxpayer-funded art projects.
Love it.
And that was great, Zach. Comment. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube. There is someone still on Mixer.
Yes, dude. Who is the sole Mixer person? I love you.
X420 is his name.
Man, X420, that is awesome.
He says, absolutely. Oi. I like, and I know it's like, I know that's nothing, but like, that's how I feel when we talk about Nathan Beverford statue. No, it's like, oy vey, you know, it's like, come on. Why do I have to talk about this? All right. And then Zach again says, rename Columbus, Ohio to Flavortown. That's actually what they're proposing to name it. Yeah, because like Chef Boyardee is from there or something, and they think that Chef Boy, he was actually born in Columbus. I think they just found like whatever colloquial hero they could find, and they were like, let's build a story around it. You know? And then Jonathan says, that's precisely the point. This is from Facebook. Mob rule doesn't represent our state. Mm-hmm. And I'd say when you come to this story, and generally that's the silver lining I feel about it. I think there needs to be a discussion. I think there needs to be debate. I think people's will needs to be heard. But that will is not executed by the articulation of a mob. It just isn't. It's too tiny of a representation. I am part owner in that stuff. And, you know, it's the public's. It's not the state legislatures or even the people who donated it. It's partly mine, too. And I don't want things that are mine being destroyed or moving around haphazardly. I want it to be done through a legal process. And I think it's cool that we have something like a historical commission where I think like the deeds being the pieces of paper, the agreements between the state and whoever provided the statues is represented in an actual living body as opposed to just the piece of paper. That's part of the problem they're having right now in Virginia with the Lee statue in Richmond. Is there's all there is a unliving document, a deed that is preventing them from getting the statue out, and it's not represented by some kind of commission that's separate. That's a separate body from the government, and the government doesn't know what to do without being sued by the family who originally donated it, because in the deed it says it's never to be taken down. So these are interesting. Tennessee has thought of a process that prevents some of this, stagnation, and Tennessee has the ability to solve this problem. Yeah, and I think that's really cool that there was some forward thinking on that. Anyway.
Absolutely. And it also prevents, like you said, stagnation is a perfect word. And it also prevents the coercion from becoming the consent type thing of what Kelly was speaking about before. Coercion is not consent. I was actually talking to someone yesterday after the show, Sean, and just sort of playing this idea that I just don't understand, getting into a bit of the Marxist conversation, okay? I just don't understand how Democrats or leftists or anybody that is a proponent of larger government programs also is a proponent of some of the Marxist ideology that's being pushed right now. Look, the only reason why I say that is because at its very nature, Marxism is about destroying the current system, no? And I'm asking that for real. Today is just a period of Mr. Henry just sort of asking open questions, and I'm trying to figure out. I'm still developing some of this. Let me know on Facebook. Now, ultimately, Marxism is about replacing it with a major, massive system upon which they control everything. Means of production of all of it, everything, right? But initially, it's about using the proletariat or the proletariat being exploited, and that individual, those proletariat, destroying the current system that's being run by something other than them. So what I don't quite understand is a Democrat controlling party that is all about big government that they control, also endorsing an element that will destroy the things that they currently control. I don't get that yet. And I go back yet again to one of the comments that we had yesterday from an individual named Virginia. We were talking about this idea of Marxism sort of taking over a lot of stuff, the ideology itself sort of creeping its way in and rotting other valid things from the inside out. I do not think this is a forum necessarily where we have to defend the stance that Marxism, i.e. communism, is arguably the worst political ideology to ever be introduced. Statistics alone will be able to prove that for you, but it hit me yesterday after Virginia made that comment. She said the comment in Facebook yesterday, by the way, to catch people up, was something to the effect of, as we were going on this rant, she asked something to the effect of like, well, why is Marxism so bad? What's so wrong with Marxism? And initially I thought it was a bit of that individual being a contrarian, maybe just being a little bit satirical, maybe it was somewhat tongue-in-cheek. But after the show, Shine, I had a conversation with two different individuals that kind of asked a very similar question. That asked, and being totally open, totally vulnerable. That was just letting me know in just like wanting to understand. So what is it about Marxism that's infiltrating some of these organizations right now? And then I think it hit me. It's like, oh man, maybe that's where we are. Maybe it's literally to a point of like, it's just a lot of folks. Maybe we just need to reintroduce that conversation. I do that, man, for a couple different reasons. I went on that rant for a couple different reasons. One of which is to pitch the show for next Tuesday. Our buddy Zig from Pennsylvania coming in. Shine and Zig apparently have been setting this up behind the scenes. We're actually going to have a show that's dedicated to the problems of Marxism. But secondly, it's to sort of show, man, that like, I don't know, when you're having conversations, and I fell fault to this yesterday, but when you're having conversations with some of these people, don't ever take for granted necessarily that some people are on the same sort of wavelength or level or even availability of knowledge. And I think it can end up doing a disservice from time to time. One of those availabilities to knowledge, Sean, if you could bring up that first photo here in this photo/meme review that we're going to go through. Some of this stuff to start with is just photo review that brings up other subsequent conversations. The meme review happens at the latter half of what we're about to go through, and it gets funny. But some of the stuff that I think people just don't have knowledge to necessarily, some of this stuff going on with the mail-in ballots, seems like a strange segue. But this conversation kind of died down a little bit for a little while. And it's going back to 2013 when the BLM movement was starting and everybody was just totally open about the Marxist foundations of what that was. And it wasn't just BLM. It was Antifa. It was a whole bunch of folks at that particular time. Nobody was hiding the ball on this. We were all openly having conversations about the fact that the most read text on college campuses was the Communist Manifesto and that this stuff was openly being pitched in the streets. And then you Shine said all the way back to Occupy Wall Street. And then you fast forward a couple years and now all of a sudden it's just, I don't know, bro. I don't know. It's just sort of like flown under the banner of something else for such a long time that like now, buddy, it's just like a whisper of like it's history and past. The same similar thing I think has happened with some of this mail-in ballot stuff, man. Like there's so much other stuff that has just been piled on top. As you pull up that photo, Shine, first thing under the national stories, what you're looking at is an email that came to me yesterday. And I'm only going to stick on this for just a little bit, just to bring it back up to people's attention. Like, by the way, just so everyone knows, this is still happening. And I'm not even using it at this point to prove a point about mail-in ballots, whether it's good or bad, should or shouldn't be. That's not my point. It's just to prove the point that this is still a thing. This narrative is still out there. This effort is still going on. I frankly, for the sake of this demonstration, don't really know who Democracy Works is, although I actually know who Democracy Works is. But either way, this is the email that I got from Democracy Works yesterday. Hello, Grant. Earlier today, we notified you about the upcoming Tennessee state primary election on August 6th and included an outdated absentee ballot request application. Due to a court order, Tennessee has issued a new absentee ballot request form. For more information about voting by mail in Tennessee and a copy of the updated form, please visit, there's the link. We recommend sending your complete absentee ballot request application to your county election official as soon as possible. Your ballot request application must be received by such and such date, yada, yada. There you go. This is an effort. I'm not even saying this is a Democrat-Republican thing. That point doesn't necessarily matter to me. The last we reported on it here at Real News, and the last that I think most of y'all heard about, there was a judge in the Nashville area that said, hey, man, because of the COVID restrictions, Tennessee must issue absentee ballots for any reason at all. Now, you still have to request them, but you must issue them. And at the end of that story, Sean, I remember reading something to the effect of like, Republicans are going to do something about that. The legislator's going to step in. Governor Lee's going to say something about this. I don't know what happened from that. I know I got this email yesterday. I don't know what happened with the other side of that story. So as far as I know, from what Democracy Works is telling me, it's like everyone just sort of like willfully got about this mail-in ballot thing. And it was a pretty major issue when it started. The court ruled and said, like, by the way, you don't have to give me any valid reason. Just issue something out there.
I have an update. Several states tried to do what Tennessee tried to do, which was limit the reasons you could ask for an absentee ballot to the reasons that you normally can, which are like, I'm not in the state, I'm on current military service, I'm a student, and that's out of state, blah, blah, blah. There, all these different reasons. They said that those normal reasons were void because of COVID. The reason that there was not a challenge or appeal for that is because the same ruling came down in all those other states. So theoretically, there was a judicial consensus that across the country that you couldn't put those limitations during this emergency. And that's probably why, because they saw that judicial consensus going on across the country.
Okay.
And you understand that, right? I mean, if you appeal it, all those appellate judges are going to say, well, man, all these other judges, they all seem to think, why are you even bringing this here? There doesn't seem to be a lot, you know what I'm saying? I think that's what Tennessee would have gotten from either their Supreme Court or the circuit courts.
And I'm wondering how that applies in Tennessee. Jonathan's saying the very similar thing to you, saying mail-in ballots have been proven in several court cases as highly manipulative, even recently. And you've been seeing a lot of memes going around, and maybe not even memes, just been seeing a lot of stories going around Facebook and otherwise recently indicating that like there's a bunch of folks that are getting mail-in ballots that have been deceased for a very long time.
Well,
Jonathan also goes
on the other side of that, and Jonathan's probably saying this, no court has made a state send a absentee ballot to everyone on the voter rolls.
Right, sure.
So on the other side of that, and I think there have been people who have sued to demand that and lost, but I'm also have a life, and I haven't been able to double check on that. But I think people did sue trying to make them send it to everyone on the voter rolls. But as far as I know, no one is making a state do that. Anyone who's doing that is doing it at their own danger.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, I mean, look, man, there are several states that rely upon mail-in ballots exclusively. So you are right. The states that don't do that yet, there's been no court system that is forcing them to do that. There are states that just do that. That's the only way they vote. Jonathan did say, he said, okay, that, meaning what I just mentioned a second ago, is a result of the rule of a federal judge here in Nashville. Apparently, the state is currently in appeals. That's why the show is so awesome, man. Greatest audience in the nation. Appreciation. Jonathan is plugged into the local system of politics here in the Middle Tennessee area, over there in the Middle Tennessee area where I come in Knoxville today. But he says that the state is currently in appeals. So I'm wondering where this is going to go, where this is going to pick up, man. And I wonder how much other state rulings, which are not mandatory in Tennessee, they would be called persuasive here in Tennessee, meaning that the Tennessee courts do not have to, they're not forced to follow them unless it's in the same circuit we are. But whatever. I mean, that's a whole different federal issue. Nevertheless, getting into the weeds. The point of bringing up the story again is just to bring it to people's attention, man. Like there's some things that kind of went by the wayside for a little while that I just are still news, man. The other thing that's still news, by the way, one of the themes for today, the next little photo here, Sean, is that photo that Trump tweeted the following meme. It was blocked on Twitter. Now, when I say blocked on Twitter, I'm talking like removed entirely from Twitter. One of the other themes apparently that's been going on for a while is this sort of censorship of free speech and the trading off of platforms as to what is considered free speech and what isn't considered free speech and what the alternative methods you can and cannot go. This photo you're looking at right now, I honestly hope this doesn't get us shut down here. If Shine's showing it on the screen right now, I frankly just don't know what in the world could be considered so inherently offensive about this that Twitter had to shut it down for somehow threatening violence. Like, are you seriously, dude? Like, is this how coddled we are as a species now? And I suppose maybe it's just in America, but I'm genuinely wondering some of this right now. So Trump tweeted this out, or rather he retweeted it. I don't pretend to understand what happened here. He probably found it. I don't know if he's sophisticated enough to copy and paste it on his own account. He probably just retweeted it. Doesn't matter. The point is that this showed up on his personal Twitter account somehow. This photo that you're looking at says, in reality, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way with the big gotcha. I got your back, Trump says. I don't know what could possibly be considered so offensive about this that apparently had to shut down and remove the photo entirely. But from the last time I looked, it wasn't even one of those things that was censored where we could like remove the image or whatever. It was just completely removed image.
I can tell you how this went down in the Twitter office building.
Yeah.
What does he mean by they?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What does he mean by they? I know what he means. He's Donald Trump. I can just go ahead and put I know what he means by they. Delete it. You know. Can you imagine them hysterical with snot running down their face and tears going, he said they.
By the way,
That's not my pronoun.
That's not it. Do one more here for me though, man. I want to hit one and then hit a video and then hit the Epstein story here in just a second. But that one that says April showers bring May flowers. I actually took this one from Kelly this morning, and it was just so fantastic for where 2020 is at right now. April showers bring May flowers. If y'all are looking at this right now, the meme says April's gonna suck. My mom. Don't worry, honey. April showers bring May flowers. And then that's so true, dude. The Mayflower of 2020 is going to devour all of us. Oh, goodness gracious. It's kind of funny, not funny, but sort of really. I don't know. Oh, man.
It's a pretty good meme. It's a pretty good meme. I give it a 6. I give it a 6.
I'm just way more easy to impress than Shine, I suppose. That was like an 8 for me. Anyways, hey, Shine. Have you seen this video by chance, the Karen and Ken impress the mom thing? It does say the G word in there on a single occasion that Tim Pool tweeted out yesterday. I really want to play it, but I also don't want to get shut down, so you make the call on this one.
I think it's different if, I don't know.
It's a cartoon. Maybe we could risk it. I don't know.
Is it worth risking it? That's my question. Are we is the show gonna be so much better if we do this right now? That's my question.
Probably not.
Okay, well, maybe
check it out on your own time. Check it out on your own time.
Maybe we shouldn't.
All right, then jump straight to the Epstein mistress prediction misprint. And look, to full disclosure here, when Shine's bringing this up, I have no clue where this came from. I have no clue if anyone's followed up to see the Photoshop nature of this or not, or if it was just a straight misprint by BBC, if they had to issue some retraction or something. I was traveling yesterday. I haven't been able to put the normal amount of preparation into the show as I do normally. So someone let me know. But what you're looking at right now is a meme that's been circulating. I suppose I call it a meme because who knows if it was Photoshopped or not, or if it was just a straight misprint. And I call it a meme because in the same sort of meme nature that other things are, i.e. sort of using an image to prove a single premise of a syllogism, this has become one of those things. And you guys know what this is. If you don't know what it is, I'm going to deliver more on that story here in just a second. This individual you're looking at, Miss Maxwell, she was a longtime mistress / associate / terrible human being that helped Jeffrey Epstein accomplish all the terrible things that Jeffrey Epstein accomplished. It's a terrible word to use there. The headline right now, as you're reading, move to intensive care as coronavirus symptoms worsen. The date that's being circled, July 11th, 2020. Obviously, what ends up happening here, and I call this a meme one more time again because I don't know if it was Photoshop, but in the other versions and veins of meme, even our own Tim Burchett. I'll read this tweet here for you because it's too far down in the show notes to indicate where it is right now, but even our own Tim Burchett tweeted this yesterday. Miss Maxwell didn't kill herself. This will save me some time posting it later. Now, everyone is sort of satirizing this situation that they think is about to come. That situation being that whoever and whatever this person knows about what Jeffrey Epstein was involved in, we really desperately hope comes to light. And if you want to go far enough with some of this stuff, man, I possibly would not advise that you do this. But all these QAnon folks out there are totally convinced that the sole purpose of President Donald Trump is to take down the pedophiles. And look, I will say this, though, okay? Statistically speaking, Donald Trump has devoted more of his Department of Justice to that very task than any other president, arguably in my lifetime for sure, possibly in American history. But I know the stat is this: he's arrested more individuals in the first 3 years of his presidency than the prior 12 or at least 8 years combined. That is a stat right there. That is an incredible statistic. You all know where I stand on this. I don't think this is even a personal opinion. I believe this is just an objective statement. The kind of grotesque, disgusting, horrendous trash that we're talking about right now, I believe is the pinnacle of human evil. I believe you cannot do anything worse. The perversion of innocence, I truly believe, is what the enemy feeds upon, like sustains itself with. I know I'm getting weird for some of y'all, and I'm not. I'll pull off here just a little bit because that's getting a little bit strange. But Sean, if we could play this next YouTube clip, because this is a major story as far as I'm concerned, and I want to issue a warning real quick. Yeah. That Reuters clip that I'm about to play here. Again, it's coming from Reuters. This is their publication. It is talking about the situation that I just brought up, though. So there's going to be a bit of language and there's going to be some imagery that's brought up, and at least what the charges brought against this individual. If you have children in the room, if you don't want to be exposed to some of the stuff, dude, I totally understand. Just want to give that warning ahead of time. But Sean, if you could, buddy, go ahead and make this full screen. It's about 3 minutes long. I think it's worth playing the entire thing just to give a breakdown as to what these charges are, where they're coming from, everything like that. But go ahead and play that.
To do along with
Ghislaine Maxwell, the former girlfriend and longtime associate of the late disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, was arrested on Thursday on charges of luring underage girls so that Epstein could sexually abuse them.
Today we announced charges against Ghislaine Maxwell for helping Jeffrey Epstein sexually exploit and abuse multiple minor girls from the period of 1994 through 1997.
Acting U.S. Attorney for New York Southern District Audrey Strauss said Maxwell was taken into custody Thursday morning in New Hampshire, where the British-born socialite had been living, and was scheduled to appear before a New Hampshire judge later in the day. She is charged with 4 counts related to procuring and transporting minors as young as 14 years old for illegal sex acts and 2 counts of perjury.
As alleged, Maxwell and Epstein had a method. Typically, they would befriend these young girls by asking them questions about their lives, pretending to be taking an interest in them. They would take them to the movies and treat them to shopping trips. Maxwell would encourage these young girls to accept offers from Epstein to pay for their travel and their education, making these young victims feel indebted to Jeffrey Epstein.
In some cases, Maxwell allegedly participated in the abuse herself.
Maxwell then tried to normalize sexual abuse with a minor victim through a process known as grooming. For example, Maxwell would discuss sexual topics with the victim and undress in front of the victim, or be present for sex acts involving the minor victims and Epstein. That abuse included sexualized massages during which the minor victim was fully or partially nude. These sexualized massages developed into sexual encounters for which Maxwell, in some instances, was present and participated.
Maxwell, right, the daughter of late British media
I wanted to play the entirety of that out because I did not want anyone to even have the slight misconception that this individual, Miss Maxwell, was somehow just like at best tacitly involved. Like she just sort of like knew him through an association, or she just sort of like ran the books for him, or she just sort of, I don't know, kept up with his BlackBerry or something like that. I wanted everyone to fully understand whatever happened to Epstein, dude. I don't know. Whatever happened to him, though, it's done now. And the most frustrating thing I think for most people is that we're all sort of still left wondering how a college professor ended up becoming one of the richest individuals in the known world. Sort of. I mean, he had the largest private residence in New York City, so I know that much, along with 4 or 5 other homes, right? Meaning that he obviously was receiving this funding from something or someone else or a bunch of entities or a bunch of like really terrible other individuals. There was a list, a massive black book of other folks that were doing this stuff along with him, that were actually taking part along with this stuff, almost in a ritualistic style behavior. I played the entirety of that clip about Maxwell just to let everyone know that it wasn't just her, I don't know, no, man, just like hanging out in the same room. Now, this Epoch Times story to follow some of this stuff. Hopefully, fingers crossed, man. And I know I'm hoping against hope here. I get that. But let me just read the last paragraph or two here that I have linked in the show notes. I would. Is it Epoch Times or Epoch Times, Shine? I don't know what they actually go by.
Epoch Times, but it looks like Epoch Times.
Okay. Epoch Times. I would strongly suggest people check this site out more. I personally think they do a pretty decent job of putting stuff out there. And whether it's biased or not, it's not my point. I'm just like, they make a strong concerted effort to do some actual legit journalism in a day and age where it's just like, I don't know, man, do we even worry about primary sources anymore? These guys seem to. But Maxwell, this is what they say. Maxwell previously lived for years with Epstein and his frequent travel companions on trips around the world. Frequent travel companions. And I know a lot of folks are going to be wrapped up in whoever that frequent travel companion is, whoever that list is. I do not care what political affiliation those folks have. The accusations against Maxwell had never resulted in any criminal charges until now. Very, very odd thing. According to an unsealed indictment, Maxwell was charged on multiple counts, including conspiracy to entice minors to travel, to engage in illegal sex acts, enticement of a minor to travel, whatever. You've heard all that. We can move on. The next quote here, from at least in or about 1994 up to and including at least in or about 1997, Maxwell assisted, facilitated, and contributed to Jeffrey Epstein's fill in the blank. I don't even like saying the words, man. It does something to my core and I can't get through it today. But Maxwell helped doing this. Here's the headline that I want to show. I mean, here's the part that I'm hoping against hope will actually deliver something for us. Following Epstein's death in 2019, Jeffrey Greco, he's a New York criminal defense lawyer and former prosecutor. He told the Epoch Times that Maxwell, this individual that was just arrested yesterday, Maxwell could potentially name others connected to the financier. So whatever you didn't get from Epstein because the guy suicided himself, whatever, dude, it doesn't matter. The guy isn't here anymore because whatever you can't get from Epstein anymore, hopefully you can get from this Maxwell person. And dude, I am fingers crossed, arms crossed, anything you can possibly cross, hoping against hope, hoping for something that this is true. Man. This quote goes on to say, Greco said at the time, she's going down. She's going to take everybody with her. They are going to ask her, who else did you provide these girls to? I think she's going to start talking. And man, I hope she does. Man, I hope she does. I'm telling you, man, some of this stuff is rotting all kinds of stuff from the inside out that we just like, I don't know, dude, just like people just don't talk about it. They just don't talk about it. Because anytime you seemingly bring it up, it's sort of like you delve immediately into the realm of conspiracy theory. And it's just so odd to me. It shakes me to my core because it's rampant. It's everywhere. And John, I don't know, buddy, do I sound like a conspiracy theorist when I say this stuff? Because I need to check myself from time to time with the type of individuals that you and I have conversations with, that we brought into this program, that we've spoken to in the past, people that have devoted the entirety of their lives to looking into some of this type of stuff. And there's been that people are, I don't know, like I feel like people just sort of gloss over these headlines and don't really understand at an institutional level some of the stuff that Epstein was involved with. It's not just like 4 or 5 folks that you hear about in like the daily whatever. I mean, it's a ritualistic sort of institutionalized initiation process to some of this stuff. Is that too much to say, Shine?
I don't think so. I mean, this isn't Fagin from Oliver Twist. You know, some poor guy with a bunch of orphans running around. This is a billionaire who this seems to have been his only mode of making money. And you don't make billions of dollars by trying to use the right words here.
I know.
You don't make
right?
this kind of money by selling your products to poor people. And I hate to dehumanize people and call them products, but I don't want to get into the details because it's disgusting. So forgive me in my language as I try to navigate this story. I don't think it's weird. I mean, was she arrested yesterday? Is that a conspiracy theory? Like, is that a theory or is that a fact?
Right.
Was she running all over the world, hiding from the U.S. government beforehand? There were rumors about her being in a Israeli embassy or being in France, or, I mean, even remember right after Epstein died, that weird thing with her getting filmed at the cafe in California where she said some really weird stuff. To me, the whole thing is weird. So to say that there could be more weird than we know is like just saying there could be more that we don't know. It's not necessarily saying there could be more weird. It's already weird.
Right.
And what is a conspiracy? A conspiracy was when more than one person can, let me not use the definition, makes a plan in private to commit crimes. That's a conspiracy. RICO, all that stuff. It's actually like there's lots of law that has to do with it. And the reason, and it's a legal term, by the way. It's not even a colloquial or social term. It's a legal term. The reason people use it is it refers to law and precedent and punishment. So I don't think it's weird. And considering all the information that that the American people got through the lawsuit that happened that preceded his arrest, by 2 or 3 years. The law, what was that, down in Florida, in Palm Beach County, I believe. All that information and all the different people who went and visited. Maybe we should throw up pictures of that island. You just throw up pictures of his house, the island that he had people visit. And you're like, wow, I see what Mr. Henry means by ritualistic. There's a temple on his island. It's very odd. The people who went were all very important people. People who called him friends are very important people.
Yeah.
People who even called him interesting are important people. Like in an email from Bill Gates, he told someone that Jeffrey Epstein was an interesting person.
Right. And that's why I'm asking, Shine, because this type of stuff implicates Democrats, Republicans. It implicates everybody from different attorneys, judges. It implicates doctors. Bro, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter if it's industry.
Captains
it doesn't matter.
Of industry. Most of the CEOs in Silicon Valley, it's not even just like the old political class.
Right. Right.
And then you have, it makes you wonder every time you hear about a mysterious death that could have involved a prostitute at a high level. Like I even wonder about Scalia's death. But anyway, it's so weird. It's very normal, I think. It's such a weird story that when you accept how weird it is, you start questioning other things that you consider normal, which is why people think it has to do with conspiracy theory type stuff. Because like I just said, the thing I just said about Scalia, those are completely disconnected stories, right? I have no reason to think that, except for the Epstein story is so shocking. Even in the sparse details that we have, it immediately starts making you question other things, which is good, okay? You have to be able to input truthful information and then use that to get other truthful information. You have to be a seeker of truth. And part of being a seeker of truth is not ignoring truth that you find, right? And then double checking yourself. So I don't think you're not saying that nothing that anybody else has said on all sides of the spectrum. And you haven't even really said anything inflammatory either. She was arrested. She worked for a billionaire who sold children to people. It's worse than any plot of a 007 movie.
Yes, dude. Right. Absolutely.
It's so the craziest thing you could ever think of.
Well, frankly, bro, that's kind of why I bring it up
to the rulers.
And it's interesting that you're talking about it's crazier than any plot you could think of, because bro, frankly speaking, Hollywood is this stuff. Hollywood perpetuates this stuff. Hollywood creates this stuff. Hollywood is saturated with this trash. I mean, I don't have to point to just Roman Polanski, man. I could point to literally anybody else, whatever child actors that have been on record saying that, like, dude, this stuff is rampant in Hollywood. I was just going to say, man, this is like a Hollywood script that Hollywood won't touch, but Hollywood won't touch it because Hollywood does it, man. I think that's a lot of reasons.
Hollywood did
sometimes
touch it once.
Yeah?
Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut.
I've never seen that movie, actually. Okay.
Don't see it. Don't see it. Maybe read about it, but do not watch it. Golly, it is one of the most vulgar movies ever made. But that was not Stanley Kubrick, in my opinion. He died shortly after that, by the way. But it's about the induction process. In my opinion, Eyes Wide Shut is about the induction process. It's about fancy people and fancy parties. He even touches on the spirit cooking type of stuff. At least alludes to it.
Right.
So like they do touch it. By the way, Stanley Kubrick, the same guy who made Close Encounters of the Third Kind and other weird movies. He was a genius, to be perfectly honest. He was a genius, and he made a movie about, in my opinion, the way Hollywood interacts with that world. Please don't go see it. Please don't. I mean, do not take this as an endorsement to go see it. Maybe just read about it. But they do touch it, Grant. That's what's so weird. Just like, all right, now I'll get weird, and I don't care. I don't care.
Okay.
Like vampires, they come to your door and knock and ask permission. They tell you exactly what they're going to do to you. And then ask if you accept it. And if you accept it, you've given them permission. But they tell you exactly what they do. They do touch it. And then they sit around and mock the people who've been told exactly what they do and talk about how stupid you are. That's what they do. At least in my opinion, and I don't care. I really don't, because we're talking about evil people. If they would do these kinds of things to children, I would assume that they're generally evil, and and jerks probably. Like they're probably at least jerks. So I imagine because they do tell us about these things. These things do come out, Grant. It shakes us to our core so much it starts making you question other things, and that's not a comfortable place to be. You know, well, but anyway.
I said before, man, if you're just joining us, by the way, we picked up a few new Facebook folks. We're talking about, obviously, Miss Maxwell. She was Jeffrey Epstein's longtime associate / mistress / I don't know, whatever else you want to call her, terrible human being. She participated in what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. And I said before that I believe what Jeffrey Epstein was doing is the pinnacle of human evil. I don't know if there's anything worse you can do from that. I don't know if people are taking me seriously when I say that, but perverting and taking away innocence from another individual is arguably the worst thing I think you could possibly do. There's a movie entitled Man of Tai Chi. I think it's the directorial debut of, oh man, who's I know Kung Fu. Who's Neo? What's his name? Keanu Reeves. It's the directorial debut of Keanu Reeves, and the story is about this guy. He's a practitioner of Tai Chi. He's one of the last in this particular style of Tai Chi. It's him and his master. And this guy is, he participates in Tai Chi, and occasionally he'll do some mixed martial arts stuff, but he doesn't really get serious about harming another human being because the purpose of Tai Chi is not to do that. That's kind of the entirety of it. Well, Keanu Reeves' character is essentially the devil. And Keanu Reeves' character is this guy who sets up an underground style UFC mixed martial arts stuff that sells this pay-per-view event exclusively to world billionaires. And it's just initially it's like, okay, what is this? Like a super hype version of UFC or something like this? Like, I don't understand what's going on, but I'm going to spoil the movie here a little bit, by the way, just so if you know, spoiler ahead of time if you don't want to hear this, if you haven't seen Man of Tai Chi. Fantastic choreography, by the way. But the purpose of the movie is to find a guy, the devil himself, Keanu Reeves' character, the guy who sets up these UFC events for billionaires. They don't want to see UFC fights. They don't want to see mixed martial arts. That's not the point of it. The point of it is to find an innocent man and pervert his innocence. Take an innocent man that's practicing Tai Chi and make him so upset that he kills another man. That's what they're paying for. That's the initiation process. They take this guy who practices Tai Chi and they use the power of the state, China in this case, to destroy the area of which he's practicing. This historic building that's been there for 850 years. They destroy it. They're going to do all this, just demolition stuff. So he has to start making money to save his dojo. And as he has to start making money, he has to start taking on more fights and more fights and more fights. And as he starts taking on more fights, he starts to like it. And he starts to fill himself with this sense of power that's coming from the other side, the dark side, if you will. And as he gets more and more power, he starts to understand what he can do with this money and this power. So they create a terrible situation that they then posit the solution for. And at the very last scene, he looks across a room of billionaires and says, I present to you your innocence. Now kill him. As he struck the final blow for this person, well, the guy ends up not killing him, and they flee. And the end scene is this man of Tai Chi fighting the devil, and the man of Tai Chi wins. I know that's a weird thing to say, but I think that entire story hit me so much of a little bit of what I'm talking about, y'all. I'm telling you, like, that's why this stuff is so strong to me. Because I truly do think once you've spent all of your own innocence, it's something that you can never pay to reattain. The best you can hope to do is pervert somebody else to bring someone down to their level. And I think there's a lot of lessons in there to be learned somewhere. And Sean, I want to end with this story today. It's a strange one to end with, I know, but this CNN story here, man, it's a little bit down the where we were before, but you'll scroll down past the free speech assault stuff, whatever else. We'll save that till a later time. This one says, this is nowhere near journalism. This next story. This CNN story that I'm about to bring up, I know it's a strange way to tag all this, but part of the reason why I'm asking these sort of in-depth questions about the Epstein stuff is because sometimes, frankly, I just don't know. We were talking before about Marxism, and I think a lot of people just don't know. They just don't get it. They just don't understand. That's totally fine. Maybe a lot of people just don't really understand the Epstein thing. Go ahead, Sean.
I was just saying I found the story.
Oh, gotcha. But this story here, let me just read a couple of these paragraphs without really telling you exactly what's going on. And tell me if you can see what's going on. South Park's entire season 19 and 20 was devoted exclusively to what I'm about to read. And I don't know if people are able to parse it properly. Here's the story. Headline. Hundreds of brands are pulling ads from Facebook. Its largest advertisers are not among them. Hundreds of companies have promised to halt advertising on Facebook and its sibling platform Instagram as part of a month-long boycott officially set to begin on Wednesday, according to civil rights group behind the protest. But even as a steady drumbeat of household names like North Face, Pfizer, Levi Strauss have joined the pressure campaign of the social network's handling of hate speech and misinformation, the vast majority of Facebook big advertisers, the ones with presumably the most leverage, have stayed quiet. A CNN business analyst of Facebook's top advertisers, based on data from market research firm, reveals that most of the 100 biggest ad spenders on the platform have not joined the boycott. The list of companies that have yet to pause advertising on Facebook, and then they just name them. Name by name by name. Walmart, American Express, and Home Depot. Of the 25 largest spenders on Facebook last year, only 3 companies, Microsoft, Starbucks, and Pfizer, have publicly confirmed their plans to pause marketing on Facebook. The top 25 businesses, according to the data, accounted for an estimated $2 billion on Facebook spending, nearly 3%. Good Lord, $2 billion, only 3% of the spending on Facebook? Goodness gracious. I digress. The data suggests that the ongoing boycott may have limited impact on Facebook's bottom line, may only have limited impact. At least as it stands right now. Even if all 100 of Facebook's biggest advertisers join in, they would account for just 6% of the company's annual ad revenue. Now, let me pause here for just a second. I know this is a strange way to tie these stories together with the Epstein stuff, the perversion of innocence, all that stuff, yada, yada. But one of the other themes of the show today is I just don't know how good Americans are. I'm terrible at this myself. I don't know how good we are at sort of parsing through properly what is an ad and what is a fact. What is reporting and what is activism. This is pure, unadulterated activism. This is a call to make a change by performing a certain action. This is not journalism. I'm telling you, as a person that makes calls to activism all the time, I'm telling you as a person that gets paid to do this, this is activism, man. You're going to go in here and list every single company name by name that's not pulled their funding from Facebook. And if you don't know what's going on with this, by the way, maybe I glossed over that too much. The companies that are pulling ads from Facebook are doing so because Facebook isn't censoring enough. They are boycotting ads on Facebook so that Facebook will censor misleading information during an election period, and specifically stuff that has to do with politics. This is seen and called activism to make sure that Facebook censors certain political ideology that they disagree with on the world's largest platform for dissemination of information. 3.5 billion folks are on this platform. This is them calling companies name by name to say, you guys better play ball and get on board with this, lest you feel the power of the mob coming the other way. This is not journalism, man. And I know, again, Sean, that's a weird way to end the show. I'll hit some Facebook comments, maybe kick it to you. But I'm hoping I can bookend all this just by showing this is a small example of like, dude, I just be wary from time to time is all I'm saying.
I
just
think it is activism, but I think it was also letting their activists know that this strategy is winding to a close.
Interesting. Okay.
Why do you think they included, even if we got all 100, which we did not? That's what because they are using we, right? Oh yeah. CNN is saying we on purpose. We only got 3 out of the 100. It's not even a drop in the bucket. And even if we got the top 100, it's only 6% of their yearly revenue. Because Mark Zuckerberg the other day and I think it was 2 days ago, made the point that most of their money comes from small businesses and not from large corporations anyway. And he said, let them go, these advertisers.
That's what he says here. My guess is that all these advertisers will be back on the platform soon enough. That was his quote as of last Friday.
There's a direct quote. He told them to pound sand.
Okay.
Now, before you go, yeah, great job, Mark Zuckerberg. Way to time to pound sand. Before you start cheering for him, they did make it more restrictive when these companies asked them to. Yeah. He's just talking out on both sides of his mouth because he doesn't know who's going to win in November. But he's also letting them know, I'm the future. If you don't want to advertise with me, no big deal. You'll be back. And I think the implication there, and it won't be such a good deal. Because what's really unfortunate about Facebook and Google is that Facebook and Google could say to any advertiser, I don't care who it is, Grant. I don't care if it's the biggest company ever. They'll just say, fine. If you're going to try to coerce me, you don't get to advertise. You're banned from advertising. And they'll go, whoa, let's talk about this. Of course you'll talk about it. Because who's advertising on television? The My Pillow guy?
I like that My Pillow guy.
I love the My Pillow guy. And he's selling towels now. So that's nice. That's nice. They're not giving us any money. So that wasn't even a secret ad or something. But the whole point is, it's a little scary that they can not care about a few advertisers. Means they definitely don't care about you, right? That's so you got to look at this full spectrum, and you can't look at it as cheer for my team or cheer against my team. You got to look at it like, what's the news? The news is a few companies pulled from Facebook. It's probably winding down as a strategy. Cancel culture is winding down as a strategy as these monopolies start acknowledging their position in the market, which Facebook dipped its toe into saying, hey, don't you know that we're like one of the only places you can advertise? Don't you know that? He told these companies to pound sand. I doubt that these activists are going to keep coming after Facebook advertisers. They go after these people because they show weakness, because they bend down, kneel down. Or I'm not trying to reference anything because
I hear you.
Because they show weakness. That's a better way to say it. But I want to be more specific. When they say pull this or change this rule and they do it, that's what makes them keep doing it because it's an effective strategy. I think what CNN is trying to say in a nice way to make sure they don't get canceled. Right? Because if they just said it won't work, they'd say, well, CNN's far right now. If you're telling us it won't work, CNN's far right. So what they're doing is trying to send the signal, not the noise. Always listen to the signal, not the noise. The signal is, I don't know if this is going to work in the future. Because look at all the effort we put into this, and we barely touched like 2 to 4% of national revenue. And who knows how much it costs these activists? You were talking about it being activism. Who knows how much it costs these groups to get that done? Who knows how much of their own personal capital was leveraged and can't be leveraged again, because that's the way things seem to go in their world, is they burn through people's standing in their community and and then find some other true believer to leverage their you get what I'm saying, their connections, their trust, and things like that in order to get these things done. But that's kind of like the other side, or whatever, a more complete context there on what's going on with Facebook, what's going on with advertisers, and what's going on with this activism. And I don't know if we see, I think cancel culture is winding down, but and don't cheer for that yet.
Right.
Don't cheer for that yet, because things, even though this has been annoying and stupid and hurt people, and there's people who are making money on the internet who are no longer able to do so for arbitrary, stupid reasons. And the only reason that can even be done is because these companies have de facto monopolies in their current state, in their sectors of the economy. Do not cheer for cancel culture going away, because even as bad as that is, it's done in lieu of violence.
Okay, interesting.
Okay? So before no matter what the kind of dialogue is, when dialogue fails, what happens, right? I don't know who said that, but that's a pretty powerful old quote by it's a diplomatic quote. When talking fails, then violence starts. And I'm not calling for any. I'm not asking for any. I don't want any. I want to live my life like a normal person and like have fun with my friends and eat dinner and go hang out with people. I don't want to live in a world full of violence. But don't cheer just because cancel culture is getting beaten. Always ask, what is next? What are the incentives? And how will those incentives be filled? These are the questions, especially during this time where the things that seem to always be coming next are out of left field. You got to really reach. You got to really be creative when you think what comes next. So anyway.
It was a fantastic breakdown, man. That was a fantastic analysis as well. I think just the basic call too is just like, man, I don't know, man, just remember your analysis. Remember, I don't know, what was the quote from Montesquieu? Basically just asked, for civilized society to exist, you don't need a lot of reason. You just have to be able to reason. We don't need everyone to be sort of like, upper level sophisticants here, man. We just need people to just reason generally. One thing on the way out of the show here, I want to draw a reference back to. By the way, Earn It Act. Sign that pledge at the top of the show notes today. Remember also, tomorrow evening, I've been promoting this. The meetup link is in the show notes. The very first thing listed in the local story is Independence Day isn't canceled. That will be tomorrow starting at 5 p.m. Check out that link. Go ahead and RSVP with them ahead of time so they know how many people are coming. On the way out also. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right. 12 p.m. Veteran Next Door. Going to be an awesome, awesome thing. I'm going to be tuning into that for sure. It's just in about 45 minutes from now. I'm going to be interviewing Thomas Jefferson, i.e. an individual playing Thomas Jefferson, but all the answers are going to be direct quotes from Thomas Jefferson about the Declaration of Independence. Fantastic thing to play. And one piece in particular I would draw people's attention to, I just didn't have time to get to it today. That headline in the show notes says free speech is under assault. Apparently, Washington Post put out an article yesterday talking about 5 myths about free speech. I would just read that for a second just to see where the other side is already talking about free speech in comparison to what they've been talking about the last couple of years. I think it's a very, very interesting piece to put sort of a cap on what's been going on for some of the protests and everything else we've been talking about. Anyways. Oh, awesome. Yes. Let's hit some of the comments on the way out. I'll start from the bottom and work my way back up then. Kelly said, pound sand, laughing face emojis. Nobody's on Facebook for the ads, Kelly says. That's 100% true. We all skip those through anyway. So let's see. Jonathan says it didn't touch their stocks. That's true. That's the point that you were making, Shine. Right?
Well, there was a slight downtick the day of the announcement, and then they recovered by the end of the day because everyone's like,
right.
oh, well, there's nowhere else to put the capital when you want to advertise. Where else are we going to put it? Right. And then the investor's like, oh, well, they'll be back. Just like Zuckerberg said the next day. He's like, oh, well, and that's why he had the ability to say it. He had the ability to say it because the investor class agreed. It's almost like proof.
Let's see here. Kelly said it's ridiculous. Sorry, she finds it ridiculous that 60 Minutes can interview the prince, but the FBI can't. I guess she's talking about Prince Andrew or whatever his name is. Kelly said that the FBI interviewed Bill Clinton about the R-word victim in 2018. Yes, Jonathan said they've had her on there. Oh, that's interesting. I meant to hit that comment earlier, man. I forgot. Talking about Epstein's mistress / whatever. Said that they've had her on their radar for a while. The prosecutor doing the interview is brazen, saying she's already talked. She's already talked. They've been following China. We think the prince is involved. Yeah, it's very, very disturbing. Jonathan said a second ago, you should look into the German. It's far worse. I don't actually know. It's not a bad thing, but I don't know what that means.
There was a ring of people who harmed children that they found in Germany in the past month. That's what he's talking about. And it was 30 years old, and it did involve the government of Germany as well. Actually, their child services.
No way, dude. For real?
Yes, for real.
Dude, all right, we're gonna have to cover some of that on Monday, I think. I don't know. Hey, my name is Mr. Henry. Stick around for the Veteran Next Door. Gonna be a fantastic
Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Happy 4th of July. David Sean Thompson. Love all y'all for real. Sincerely, when I say that, reach out to us if you need anything at all. We'll see y'all very soon.